This is Author Conversations, the Stenhouse Publishers podcast featuring our authors, their work, and topics in education. In this edition, recorded at NCTE's annual conference in Nashville, reading specialist Pat Johnson describes the circumstances that led to her book, One Child at a Time.
So I worked with many teachers, all different grades, from kindergarten through 6th grade, and many times a lot of the teachers, I'd be helping them, set up writing workshop, or how to do guided reading, how to group children, how can I do better read-alouds, what's new in children's literature, and I was helping with a lot of those things for many years. But over those years, I kept getting similar questions, and it didn't matter if it was a 1st grade teacher or a 6th grade teacher. The questions were always, I have 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 kids who really struggle. And how can I help the child who's really struggling? Not just a little bit behind grade level, but a child is really struggling in my classroom. And what I started thinking about was, what if we worked on one child? What if we really looked in closely at that one child? And could we work together, put our heads together, talk a lot about the child? And maybe I could help teachers, and in the same vein, they were helping me. But we would learn how to look at a child, observe closely, with an eye and an ear towards strategies to see what is it that this child can do, or maybe can almost do, or can't do at all. And I used a framework, which is a fairly common framework. It's called Here's What, So What, Now What, and Then What. And I developed that framework a little bit just as a way to help us talk about children who are really struggling. So in the Here's What stage, we were really looking at, what are these child's needs? What can he actually do that we can build on and reinforce? And what can the child almost do? And what does the child really need to have modeled for him? And we would do that in the Here's What stage, and then we would talk in the So What stage, and we would really plan our instruction. We would sort of juxtapose what this child's doing against what a reader could be doing as far as having a whole repertoire of strategies in their head to solve print and understand text. And we would plan our instruction from there. And the Now What stage, of course, was the teaching stage. And we would do a lot of side-by-side teaching. Now, there were times when we would work with that child within a small group, or we'd keep that child in mind when we were working whole group. But some of the work we did was to zero in on this child, not necessarily telling the teacher you have to meet with this child a certain amount of time, but when you do meet with that child, let's make the most of what that interaction is. And so we would really try to model for the child, pull back a little bit, scaffold the child, prompt and support the child as they took off on their own, so that they would take on some of these behaviors or these strategic actions to help them figure out the words, solve the print, or understand the text.
One Child at a Time, Making the Most of Your Time with Struggling Readers, K6, by Pat Johnson, is available now through Stenhouse and your Stenhouse distributor. Thanks for listening.